What's up everybody? So in today's video we are going to be putting the Vossen wheels back on the Nissan GT-R. They've been off the car now, maybe like 2 months or so. I had them off before I did the exhaust on the car. That way I could do all the launch control runs, all the before and after sound clips, and then of course bring this car to the drag strip. Since the tires on these wheels are about 1 inch smaller diameter compared to the OEM ones, I didn't really want to risk doing like launch control runs with it just because I didn't know if traction control would mess up. Because a few times with this smaller set, pinning it full throttle in like third gear, higher speed, traction control will come on and actually limit some power. So for performance settings, that size tire isn't ideal. However, they all are the same size tire, so it's perfectly safe for the differential and transmission of the car and everything. First things first though is getting into the car and getting it out of the garage. I have a lot of stuff in the garage right now, and I just finished doing the cabin air filter, and since the sun is burning hot this morning, I had the car pulled way over here so I could actually get to this side of the car. Let's get the car out to get the new wheels on, but also the biggest part of this video is I'm gonna be taking the brakes apart a little bit to measure the discs and check out the rotors and everything to actually see when I need to replace them. From what I know, that's a pretty pricey thing to do. Replacing pads and rotors in this car is not cheap like your typical sports car. So I'll measure everything, see how everything's looking, and I'm gonna call Nissan just to get their quote, front and rear, parts and labor, and then I'll show you guys the kit that I'm actually looking at when the time does come. We're going to start with the fronts. As far as the brakes go, I'm pretty sure that the front ones are the ones that actually make all the noise. I bet the rears are probably in much better shape, being that they're the rears versus the fronts. But we'll measure everything, take a look, and then of course get some pricing. And just like that, we got the front tires off. Super easy to take wheels off of a car. So now we are left with the front rotor and the caliper. The rotor itself looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a lip on the far edge. It's very small, maybe 1 or 2 millimeters, if that. Everything else, it looks pretty smooth. There's nothing crazy like grooves or anything in the rotor. So we'll take a good look at everything now. So the pad on this side, I mean, it doesn't look like it's that bad. You can still see a little channel in the center of it. But we'll go ahead and pop these upper and lower pins off to get these 2 springs off, and then I'll get a ratchet to take these 2 bolts out, and I should be able to remove the entire pad. Hopefully that comes out smooth. So to remove these 2 pins, I'm going to use a punch right here using a hammer. Really easy to pop these out, just line it up on it and do a few firm hits. It came out a lot easier the first time I did this. And funny enough, this is actually the first time I have ever taken apart brake calipers and looked at brake pads. With every car I've owned, I've never had to actually replace brakes. So obviously pretty simple though, but first time for everything, I guess. Might as well start on a GT-R. So now, don't know how easily these are going to come out. Hopefully they just slide out. Alright, slowly we'll wedge this thing out. Hopefully I can get them back in. If I can't get them back in, we're in trouble. So I'm pushing the pistons in now. There we go. Alright, well there is a front brake pad on a 2014 Nissan GT-R. And that one comes out a lot easier. So we'll remember they went like that, so I'll keep them in that orientation just for the heck of it. So here we go, we'll take a look at what we have. Those are the 2 springs, that's the new one that I just did. These are the pins that hold the center of them in, and then those are the other pins that hold the spring and the actual brake pad in place. Here are the actual pads, and here's just a look at the 6 pistons in there. This is only taking me 30 minutes so far from where I am right now, and that's including all the setup time for all the cameras. So this is easily like an hour job, very easy to do. No need to have a shop do brakes for you. This is insanely easy. So here we go. Let's look at the brake pad. Let's see how how much we got left on these things. Now, quite honestly, they look like they're still in really good shape. Let me actually get this brake dust out of the centerpiece. There's a lot of stuff in there. So there we go. So looking at it, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. There looks like they're about 5 millimeters actually. When I bought them, the Nissan dealer said that they were at 6. So right here we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm not sure what the minimum spec is for the GT-R. Some of you may be able to comment that information, but we're at 5 millimeters. That looks like a healthy amount. Quite honestly, I do not see these needing replacements in quite some time. I've driven 3,000 miles and I've gone, I guess, about a millimeter of wear on them. Maybe they need replacing when they get to the groove here. So then technically we're at almost 3 millimeters then. We got a good 3 millimeters or maybe 2 or 3 millimeters left until this groove is gone. So with all that measured and everything, last thing we're gonna look at is the actual condition of the brake pads. Again, I don't really know too much about it, so hopefully a few of you can help me, but there are a few little chunks out. You can see these dark spots. They're actually like chunks. I could stick a little needle in there. And we do see some little cracks all in here. Again, that could be normal, I'm not really sure. You can see a little bit right there. The chunks might be a little bit harder to focus on. So overall pad condition, I would assume looks pretty good. Rotor condition, same thing. The only drawback is just the slightest lip on here, but you might be able to see it a little bit. If I go here, you can see that little bit of a gap between the actual disc and the flat edge of the tool. You can see how it rocks. So it might be a good millimeter, millimeter and a half of edge there. But overall, that is the condition of the front brakes. I think they are perfectly fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the Nissan dealership to see how much they would actually charge to not only get the parts, but actually do the labor itself. It'll be interesting to see what they quote for labor because this is like an hour job. It really takes no time. You can easily do it with yourself with some basic tools.
Service center, my name is Jordan. I can help you.
Hey, I have a quick question. I wanted to get a labor and parts quote. I have a 2014 Nissan GT-R. I wanted to see what new brake pads and rotors would cost all around.
For the GT-R, it would be, let's see, okay, with rotors and pads, it would be $215 for the front and then $215 plus tax for the back. Roughly, you're looking at around altogether maybe $550 maybe. And
that's just the pads? Is that the rotors as well?
Oh yeah, that's for the pads and rotors.
Okay. Alright, and is that including labor or just the parts?
Yeah, that's just for the parts. For the labor, I think it's more so like $31.
Okay.
Alright, well thanks for calling. Have a nice afternoon.
Thanks, you too. I don't think that's right. He quoted $550 pads and rotors all around, and he said 35 bucks labor. If that is true, that is insanely a good bargain. I'm gonna call another Nissan dealer because last time I went, they said it was like $2 grand an axle, so let's call another Nissan dealership.
Thank you for calling. For quality of service, this call may be recorded.
I got a quick question for you. I have a 2014 Nissan GT-R, and I wanted to get a quote on new pads and rotors in all four corners.
Can I buy your GT-R? Just kidding. You're the first person that I've actually talked to that owns one.
Oh yeah?
Alright, hang on just 1 second, okay?
Alright.
Okay, so my service advisor told me to write down your name and phone number and they will get a quote for you and one of us will give you a call back.
Alright, well, so first Nissan dealer said $550 for all brake pads and rotors in all four corners. Second one, they are going to give me a call back for the quote. So let's get this thing back together, start working on the wheels, and when I get a phone call, hopefully I'll hit record and we'll see what this Nissan dealer says they cost. So as I'm going to reinstall these, I actually just noticed these, finally. That is the little wear indicator right there. A lot of you had said that's the piece that's making the actual squeaking noise in my brakes. So as you can see, it's not quite there yet. So there's a good, like I had said earlier, maybe 3 millimeters until this thing's actually gonna hit. So we got a good 3 millimeters until the brake pads technically need replacing. Well, that was pretty easy. Popped the pads back in place. All the springs and everything are squared away tightly. And look, I cleaned the brake caliper. A lot of you guys gave me a hard time about not cleaning them last time. Looking pretty good. I didn't really get the far back, but the whole face and everything is nice and clean. So now let's pop on the Vossen wheel. So the front's all done, just gotta torque the bolts one last time. The brake calipers are nice and clean, so that is good to go. So now we'll take a quick look at the rears. I'm not gonna take the brake pads off just because of how decent shape the fronts were. So looking at the rear rotor, there is some grooving. I don't know if you can really tell on camera. I think that angle, you can see it on the top there. And then as far as a lip, I feel like it's about the same as the other one. I don't know if it's gonna focus well, but you can see a pretty decent gap there. I'd say a solid 2 millimeters while the front was about 1 millimeter. So these rotors might be in actual worse condition than the fronts. And then looking at the brake pads, so I don't know if you guys can see it at all, but I can still see the channel groove in the center of the brake pad. It looks about the same as the front. Again, I don't know if the camera's picking any of it up, but judging how the fronts were and judging by how much I can see of this, these things look like they're about the same as the fronts. So I think these rotors all around should last me at least the rest of the year until I hit 30,000 miles, and quite honestly, they're probably gonna last for quite some time. All right, nice and cleaned up. We'll run back to the front, see how they look with the wheels. Nice and shiny. And we are almost done.
Well, I'm assuming you know roundabout what this brake setup's gonna cost you, don't you?
Yeah, I know it's up there.
You're coming in at $2,952 and 17 cents for the fronts.
Okay.
And your rears are coming in at $2,869.92.
Okay, so without labor, we're roughly $6,000.
$62,1508.
Okay.
The parts before tax is $5,822.09.
What is the labor quote if I had the dealership do it?
You're looking at $275 per axle, so $550 will cover your front and cover your rear.
Okay. All right.
And obviously, I'd recommend your brake fluid system to be serviced at that time, and that's $150 also.
Okay, that's not too bad. So we got a real quote from Nissan for the brakes. So the first dealer, they were only talking about labor, so that didn't really help. So then for parts and labor, I'm gonna have to rewatch this video because I kind of forgot, but I think it was like $6,000 or $7,000 kind of what I was looking at on the forums, and then $500 labor, $150 for the brake flush. They recommend every 6 months to do that. Honestly, I might go ahead and just do that at Nissan, 150 bucks. That's not too bad. And that'd be a good way, just preventative maintenance for any more track events or anything like that, just as a safety precaution to keep the brakes working properly. So it's now the next day, the GT-R is all done with the wheel change. So here is the aftermarket kits that I am looking at. So Racing Brake is the brand. I've heard a lot of really good reviews about them. My two options are either a $2,000 kit or a $3,000 one. These are the actual rotor rings and new pads. And then if you look at it, so this piece right here is obviously separate from the rotor. So that first one I just showed you would be new rotor and pad all around. And then this second kit for $3,000 also has the center portion, which are aluminum rather than the steel. So these ones actually weigh a significant amount less than the stock GT-R ones. And then I think for either these ones or the other ones, these are actually a few millimeters thicker than the stock brakes. And just doing the rings, these are 2 pounds lighter in each corner. And then these are 34 millimeters wide. I think stock is like 32. We get the 2-piece front and rear, the XT910 pads, 34 millimeters wide, standard is 32.8. So these ones and the other ones are technically oversized, so they're a little bit thicker, which is gonna be a little bit better. And then we're actually shaving quite a lot of weight off. So we got a significant weight reduction in the back. So that is $3,400 actually. I thought it was closer to $3,000. So anyway, those are the two aftermarket ones that I'm gonna go with. I'm not sure which one. I'm kind of leaning towards just the ring kit. I don't really think I need the center portion. That's another over $1,000 more. I think this website also had some OEM ones, but we're looking at just the rotors for more than what I can do with aftermarket brands. So I'm definitely not planning to go with the Brembo brand. There's really no point to. Aftermarket ones are just as good. And as far as going to the dealership, having them do it, you're looking at a $7,000 bill. That's quite a big chunk. Of course, this is a supercar. It's a high performance vehicle, so that does make a lot of sense. But looking at all the aftermarket stuff, there's really no point to do that. And having to spend $7,000, if that was my only route, I would just trade this in for a newer GT-R because I could actually spend less money and get a newer car. So I wouldn't want to waste the money going to the dealership. Aftermarket is definitely going to be the way to go. Well, anyway, I think that wraps up today's video. Really cool being able to measure the brakes to see their actual condition, to see how they're lasting. And it looks like they're gonna last me quite a while. I don't have to do brakes for quite some time, which is definitely good for my bank account. Although the aftermarket one's for $2 grand, I think that's a pretty decent deal for what you're getting for this car. That wraps up today's video though. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a huge thumbs up, smash the subscribe button. See you all next video.